Okay, so my first experience was to come down here and kind of visit with this tree, which I found engaging. It was calling me. And then it started to actually speak to me and told me that it has the Greenman spirit in it and that it wanted to talk to Dan, who's the owner of this property. And so that was the very first experience.
Well, the message was, I felt, to be rather non-specific, the kind of thing that you generally get from spiritual-esque perspectives that people have, and being somewhat of an agnostic-gnostic about this kind of thing after 60 years of following it. I think that my initial reaction was, that's nice, and I'm sure there's lots of good energy on the ground and the energy here, and I'm sure it's in the trees, but you know, what's really going on? And great, it's nice you've got a message, and I'm glad you've got a message for me, but show something, because the message was somewhat that we would be developing a fin horn type of situation on our property here, where everything would become very productive and very easy to grow and very bountiful. And so I said, great, show me something. And kind of left it at that, and didn't do much of a long conversation and a cosmic communication or channeling with the tree. I simply said, great, if you've got energy, show me something. So the next time that Rita came out, she said, what was the message? And I said, yeah, you know, and I kind of had the feel about what was going on with it. So wait, I'm waiting to see something.
Well, the first occasion I had of meeting this particular tree, I was very drawn to it, and always felt like it had very strong energy. And then recently we were in the garden. It was the end of the harvest season, and it was the very tail end, and we were standing over there, and we were talking about the apple trees, and I knew of the apple tree over here, and it clearly had been harvested. And I said, so what about that apple tree over there? And people just kept talking like I didn't say anything. And then, you know, not being rude, but I said, oh, what about the apples on that apple tree over there?
What apple tree? And he's like, that apple tree right there. And we're like, there aren't any apple trees. How about that one right down there with the big red apples on it?
Now, it was very challenging for Troy because the apple was over there. You could see it very clearly. It was like in Maine. It's over there, but you couldn't get to it. You had to climb through brambles and all kinds of brush.
And then I sat there and looked at it. And because, like, we have this tree here and these blackberry bushes growing up all over it. So it's like you couldn't even see it was there. And it took a second for my eyes to completely focus, and then it almost like it appeared in front of my eyes. You know, it just emerged right out of the whole thickets and brambles and such. So I was like, all right, apples, and this is all kind of happening. So I grabbed some nippers, put on my coat, and I ran down there and started hacking away at the branches. And it took like almost 45 minutes to cut away all the brambles and blackberries that had been growing up it. And I had to climb this tree. This says something about, you know, the fact of not noticing this 15-foot tall apple tree with apples growing on it right outside the garden that is in visual range. And so I climb it. I just like grabbed as many as I could in the pockets I had.
And so evidently this apple tree had grown from the occasion of that over the many decades that they had eaten apples out of that tree, and then would cast the eaten apple down the ravine aspect or down the hillside or whatever.
Well, it obviously didn't spring up since Rita talked to the tree. It's when we discovered and noticed it. And I found that to be impressive.
And you know, from being here, I can tell that the seeds came from that tree, but I mean, it's very rare, if you know about genetics, that it's very rare that you have something from a seed even populate, let alone that it produced such a beautiful fruit.
It's very uncommon that you'd have something like that occur.
But what was unique was that this apple had the most extraordinary flavor.
They were incredibly juicy and tasty.
And then lo and behold, it was the most wonderful tasting apple you'd ever had. Everybody exclaimed over it.
How do you feel about the Greenman now after this experience?
appears that it can grow apple trees. And I remain very open, but not particularly interested in finding a new earth god to worship or anything like that, but rather, great. If this is real spirit, this is real earth energy working here, and it's some of the spirit that has been part of this land before, and other spirits that have come into the land, then that's great. But let's do something, because, you know, seances and clairvoyancy is all nice for entertainment, but how does that feed people? How does that bring abundance? And the message from the Greenman was, this will be abundance. It will grow. It will help people. It will make things good. So, we're waiting to see what happens. But I continue every day trying to do things the way that I think that the planet needs to function and the Greenman, quote unquote, would want it to be.
But we did in fact have this beautiful apple tree, which is, I think, from the Garden of Eden, because it was the best apples we ever tasted. And we really had a good time because we all had that aha moment, which is what it's all about. So what the trees and what the animals and what nature is telling me, because I'm very intimate in this relationship with nature, is telling me that we need to all have this experience and to all speak to nature, and then to listen so that, and know that what you hear is what you hear, to believe it, because that's going to give you the opportunity to really connect to that all it is, because we are now engaged in an evolution, and we are evolving as a species consciously for the first time in the history of humankind. And so the way that we're going to be able to do that easily and effortlessly without stress of necessity and pain and struggle and suffering is by connecting to that which is already knows all the answers that they're going to allow us to now use for our betterment and for the betterment of the planet. So this is a very exciting time, and I'm very happy to be here engaged with this tree because I love it and it loves me. And trees don't worry. That's the message from trees all the time. So worry does not serve you. So be happy. And they named it Sutton's tree because nobody knew it was on the property. Nobody had ever seen it before. You were the first person to see it.
Well, you know, somehow I believed, and you know, it manifested. So it's beginning to show how our thoughts become things, and our concepts become a reality. And you know, the more you think about what you want, the more you get what you want. It's a wonderful technique. So we find that such abundant in nature, and it's always there. And you know, if you have any challenges, you know, nature, quieten yourself, because like Rita said a moment ago, the trees don't worry. Trees do not have fear or worry. And that's a gift that they can give us all the time, because we so often emulate the oak tree, and now if we could become the willow tree, we'd become more flexible and things would be even more comfortable.
Absolutely.